Hello, my fellow humans. I have something shocking that I want to tell you, and it is very controversial, but I hope you hear me out. If you want your son to be a good person, do not take him to church, okay? Please stay with me. I should introduce myself. My name is Sharice. I was born into a Christian household, and I was homeschooled, Christian homeschool, and I went to Christian college, and I graduated from Christian college. I went to many black and white churches. I am a pastor's daughter, and I have read the whole entire Bible. And based on my background and my experiences in churches and in black and white evangelical Christian fundamentalist churches, I say that it is not good for a boy to go to church if you want him to be a good person, because in church, and especially in the churches that I attended, these churches were teaching boys and men that they were more important than women and girls. Now, if you teach that to boys and men, and if they really believe that they are better than girls and women, what they're going to do is look down on girls and women and treat them badly. And they will also abuse them. Now, they may not always hit the woman. They might not always punch the girl. They may not always do that. But they will talk down to the girl. I grew up in a patriarchal household. That was not good for me. Okay? The man, he told us he would talk down to his wife. He had a son. My brother thought he was more important than women. He told me that he said, since I'm a boy, I'm more important than you. And then he got his girlfriends, and he abused his girlfriends, punching them and yelling at them and verbally abusing them. He thought he was more special. And so, yeah, when I was in Christian college, my teacher was teaching about how women are secondary to man, and that it is a woman's job to serve her husband and to be silent. And I used to listen to Christian radio stations, and the Christian radio people were saying the same thing. The Christians back then, the Christian man back in the early 2000s and the late 1990s, they were saying the same things that the red pillars were saying. They were saying the same things that the man in the manosphere were saying. They were very misogynistic. The Bible is misogynistic. And if you don't know what misogyny means, it means to look down on women, to have a negative attitude about women and girls. And it also means to have a negative stereotype against girls. So I would go to church, and I did not like how the Christian men were treating the women. So yeah, I was in church, every Sunday and stuff, and every Wednesday basically. And I was in the driveway, and I was standing in the driveway waiting for my dad to leave, and my dad was talking to a young man, and I'm 17 years old, and the young man, he sees me, and he says, "Hey, Sharice, why don't you make me something to eat? Why don't you cook me some food?" Now, this young man, he was not related to me, and he never did anything for me, so I did not think he deserved any of my free labor. Why should I cook for him if he never did anything for me? So I told him, I said, "Are you asking me?" Well, he didn't ask me to cook. He told me to cook for him. And I said, "Are you telling me to cook for you just because I'm a girl? And do you feel like you're entitled to me serving you?" And then he got quiet. He got quiet because he was not expecting that. And my dad did a nervous laugh, like he didn't know what to say. Neither one of the guys knew what to say. And I said, "I don't owe you any of my services." And I did not cook for that man. Okay? He didn't, because he never did anything for me. He never did anything for me. He was not related to me. He did nothing for me. So then there was no need for me to cook for him. Plus, I was single and I was a teenager. And at that time, I had feminist ideas, and I wanted to challenge stupid beliefs back then. Like, my personality was weak back then, But I didn't like that this guy was trying to stereotype against me and say, hey, Sharice, since you're a female, you can cook for me and your dad. Dude, I don't owe you. I don't owe you my free services. And back then I was thinking a lot. Is that what men want for women? Free services? They want a free maid? Do they feel entitled to a free meal? Even from a woman who they're not related to? You know, this is stuff I thought about back when I was 17, you know? And then I go to Christian college and I hear the pastor preach about how much men are more important than women, and God used man, and the women need to sit back and be silent because the women are considered leftovers. And he said, the pastor said, God don't use junk. God don't use leftover. God used man. Man, that's what God wants. He wants the man, you know. And then, but before that sermon, the pastor asked all the men to stand up, and they were singing a song called Mighty Man of God. And the pastor said, all you men, all of you stand up, and you sing this song with me, Mighty Man of God. All you women, you sit down. You sit down while the men stand up and sing Mighty Man of God. And so I was sitting down with the rest of the women, and I felt like a second status person. Now, this was an all-white college, okay? And I'm already black, so I had to deal with my blackness. But I also had to deal with sexism, too. Like, Christianity sexism. I was like, I feel like a second-rate person. Oh, yeah, and by the way, I also have autism. So sometimes I just really, really think about, I was really, really being thoughtful at that time. I was like, man, you know. And I had never been a part of any special group, okay? And so when people said that, you know, white people are more special and more important than black people, I had a problem with that. And when people said that men are more smarter and more important than women, I had a problem with that too. I had a problem with both of those things. And so I was like, man, we're all human. We're just trying to survive and live in this world. And here I am, I got to deal with being an outsider based on how I was born. Like, this is crazy. And I'm learning all this stuff in church. And so I've heard some really, really weird sermons in church. And so I went to, after graduating from college, well, when I was almost done with college, I went to a Lutheran high school. And the teacher will always tell the boys, okay, when it's time to pray, you boys, you stand up when it's time to pray, because you guys are the leaders, and you girls, you sit down. And the girls were never allowed to pray. Only the men were allowed to pray. And then they had chapel in this private Christian high school. And during the chapel, it was this private school, it was in the inner city. It was a school for kids who were at a disadvantage. Most of the students were black. And so we had a white man teacher approach these disadvantaged black students, and he's telling these girls who are black that they need to be quiet and let the man lead. And I'm like, these girls are living in the inner city. They don't have a father. They don't have a man in the home. They're dealing with poverty. And when a woman don't have a man in a home, she gotta be the leader anyway. She gotta take care of all the issues. She gotta be strong. There's no man looking out for her. He's telling girls who don't have men looking out for them that they need to let men take charge. But in their personal lives, they did not have a man looking out for them. These black women needed to look out for themselves because no man was looking out for them. So this was done in bad taste, you know. But he was a white man saying that, hey, the men are in charge, and telling the black girls that they were not in charge over anything. And I was like, he was not being very empowering at all. And so it was not helpful. It was not helpful information. But for many boys, when they go to church, especially the churches I went to, they're being taught that men are the head of the house, and just because you're born with a penis, that means you are a leader automatically, okay? This is harmful because we are not just our genitals. That's not what we're made out of. A woman can be a good leader. Even though she's born with a vagina, she can still be a leader. We are not our vaginas, okay? And the men are not their penis. We are so much more than that. So much more than that. If a woman has a good brain, she can be a good leader. If a man has a good brain, he can be a good leader. It's about who has the good brain. It's not about our genitals. It's about who has the good brain. And many of the boys in church are being misled. They're being misled to believe that just because they're born a certain way, they get to be the ones in charge. Well, that doesn't match with real life, okay? And the next generation of women are not going to accept that. So, if you take your son to church, especially an evangelical fundamentalist church, he's going to learn how to be entitled. He's going to think that all he has to do is have a job, then he can get married, and then his wife is going to be his little bitty servant. And she's just going to serve him and clean up behind him and cook for him. And he's the man and he's in charge and he gets to make all the decisions and be in control over everything. Over just everything. That's not going to work. Okay? In the modern world, that's going to set your boy up for failure. Okay? That is really going to set him up for failure. If you want to set your son up for failure, make him believe that somebody wants to clean up behind him. Okay? Because in modern times and nowadays, nobody wants to clean up behind anybody. Okay? Nobody wants to be a servant to nobody. The girls nowadays, they want to be their own main character. Okay? The Bible was wrong. The Bible was greatly mistaken when they said that the woman is the weaker vessel. That's in the Bible. The Bible says the women are the weaker vessel. The Bible says man should rule. The Bible says women can be saved through childbirthing. That's in the Bible. But just because it's in the Bible doesn't mean it's not true. The Bible is a book. It has been misled. People have misused the Bible. It's just not very useful nowadays. Okay, we're living in modern times. We all need to grow up and we need to realize that we're all human and we just all need to grow up and do what we're supposed to do, and we all need to be a complete full human. Okay? That's what needs to happen. So yeah, if you take your boy to church and he learns how to be a misogynistic pig, what's going to happen to him is he's going to end up being single. And if he tries to date a girl and he doesn't know how to do anything for himself and he wants the girl to do everything for him, the girl, she's going to call the boy's parents. And she's going to say, excuse me, your son is a worthless piece of shit because he don't know how to do anything for himself. And he thinks I'm supposed to serve him. And he thinks I'm supposed to do things for him. He don't know how to do anything for himself. What he needs to do is go back to his mommy and his daddy and learn how to do things for himself. And he needs to learn that just because a man gets married doesn't mean his wife is his little bitty servant. Okay? That's what he needs to learn. Okay? So anyway, yeah, don't set your son up for failure. And don't help your son to believe the biblical teaching that men are better than women and that men are supposed to rule over women and that women are supposed to be little servants to the man and women are supposed to submit to the man and women are supposed to be under the man's boots and women are something less than. That's going to help your son be single. If you want your son to be single, let him believe that. If a man thinks that it is his job to be entitled to women's free labor, if a man want to think that, that's okay, but he's going to end up being single for the rest of his life. He's going to be single because this next generation is not going to put up with that shit. If a man thinks he's more important than women, he going to end up being single because these modern day girls are smart because we got Google. We have Google and we can look up stuff. These modern day girls are smart. Generation Z, they don't want to live with a man who looks down on them. Okay? So if your son looks down on women, he going to be single. He is going to be single And he may not even be able to have any kids because all the girls and all the women are going to stay away from him because we know better today to not live with a man who looked down on girls or women. And here's the problem I had in the black community. Some black men, they were saying that they were trying to get black women to be beneath them. But a black man, he doesn't have the upper hand when it comes to white women. Can black men rule over white women? Okay, I'm talking about intersection. Okay, so the white woman does have privileges because being white is a privilege in this country. Being white, that's the privileged group, okay? So the white woman, she's at an advantage because she is white, but she's at a disadvantage because she's a woman. So if a white woman wants to dominate a man, she can say, okay, I want to dominate a black man because the black man is a conquered man. And she can say that because the continent of Africa, it used to be 95% of Africa was conquered and ran by white people. Europeans were able to take over Africa. There's you can read about the Berlin Conference. The European countries took over Africa, okay? And Ethiopia was a country that was not conquered, but the rest of the African countries were basically conquered. And so a white woman can look down on a black man and say, you guys are a conquered group of people. Now, the black man made a big mistake saying that I'm the man and I need everybody to submit to me. Well, the white woman don't have to submit to him. She can go to her white man and she can say, hey, Mr. White Man, aren't I as a white woman more valuable? I'm more on top of the pyramid than the black man. And the white man can agree with her and back her up and say, yeah, you're more important than the black man because you're white. You see? So the black man can't put down the white woman because she can use her whiteness to feel better than the black man. And she can get the white man's support. So my point is, there's no point in the black man trying to put down women when he cannot conquer the white woman. That's one woman you can't completely conquer. And then on top of that, a lot of black women do not want to be under the feet of black men or any other man for that matter. Okay? So just very interesting, something weird, something to think about. But the only reason why I mentioned this because when I was a, Christian girl hanging around Christian, black men and black pastors would tell me, guess what? We're more important than you because we're a man. And finally, I snapped. And one boy, he told me this. He said, yeah, since I'm a man, I'm more valuable than you. And I said, okay, well, if you want to think that, white people can look down on you. White people can say, we are more important than you because we're white. And you nothing but a Negro. How do you feel about that? And then the black man said, yeah, you got me. You got me there, And then a different black man was trying to tell me that he was more important than me because he was a man. And I told him the same thing. I said, white people can look down on you. If you want to look down on me, then white people get to look down on you. How about that? And then he was like, yeah, you got me. Again, yeah, you got me. So you black pastors out there, stop saying that women are beneath you. Cut it out. You can't even rule over all women. Just cut it out. Just stop it. But yeah, if you want your son to get married and have children, he has to believe in equality. And he has to have a good personality. And he has to be kind. Okay? Now, you incels out there, the incels, if you don't know what an incel is a man who cannot get any girl to date him or have sex with him because he's unattractive and he has a horrible personality and he don't get himself together. But if an incel wants to get himself together, the main thing that he needs to do is have a good personality. Nowadays, if a man wants to get married, he has to have a good personality. He has to respect women. He has to believe that man and woman are equal. And he just got to be a kind person, and he has to be mature. He has to be the full package if he wants to get married. But they're not teaching that in church. They're not teaching men, hey, you're not better than a woman. In church, they're teaching men that, hey, you are better. And that kind of preaching is causing men to be single. And that could be one of the reasons why the birth rate is dropping. Now, I want to be fair and say that if you go to a good church that are teaching men to respect women, if you go to a good church that are teaching men that women are not beneath you, women are your equal, then you're going to a good church. That's a good church. If your church not putting down women and not trying to control what women wear and complain about women's body, because I went to a church like that complained about women's body, and I've heard crazy stories. There was this pastor. He had a problem with women's bodies. Okay, that's the kind of church I grew up in. And this pastor, he said, look, if your skirt is too short, it's going to make me think about sex. And he had the woman stand up. Okay, this is crazy. He had the woman stand up, and he said, okay, now let me see who's dressing inappropriately. Okay, these 3 women over here, okay, their skirts are too short. And since their skirt is too short, it makes me think about sex. Okay, so he's like, I'm thinking about sex now, letting people know. Because these women, their skirt is too short. Well, the pastor was corrupt. Women have a right to exist. Okay, women have a right to exist. If you have a problem with a woman's body, as a man, as a Christian man, that's your problem. Women are going to exist. If women don't exist, there's no people. So what the Christian church needs to do is they need to watch out for their negative attitude about women and about women having bodies. You need to cut that out. If you want your church to grow and thrive, you need to cut it out. Or you can just not go to church at all. That's what I do. I don't go to church at all. I don't want to hear that garbage. I heard enough of that growing up, and I'm done with that stuff. So I have a right not to go to church because I don't want to hear that stuff anymore. And plus, I'm an atheist on top of that, so I don't have to deal with all that kind of stuff. But it's basically what I want to say. Yeah, teach your son how to respect women. Teach your son to respect his mom and his sister and his girl cousins and his aunties. Teach your son not to look down on women and to treat women as equal. Teach your son that it's not his job to correct women. It's not his job to tell women what they can and cannot wear. And yeah, basically teach him how to be respectful and how to be a good person and how to have a good personality. And then maybe he can be married when he grow up. So that's basically what I have to tell you. And I will talk to you later. Goodbye.